Muslim women of Reddit who are married to a non-Muslim man. What has your experience been like so far? My family is pretty strict. Saudi Arabian style Muslim etc. My older sister was seeing someone who wasn't Muslim. I think he was Zoroastrian. My parents did everything in their power to end things. Some pretty awful things tbh. She ended up running away, and we haven't heard from her in 6 years. From what I have heard of, she is still with him. Something I can add to, I grew up as a Muslim, with a very religious mother. My father is however Australian, and converted to Islam for marriage, though he is non-practicing. Growing up we had to attend mosques, religious studies every week, praying 5 times a day, and fasting during Ramadan. Also we adhered strictly to eating only halal foods. Growing up in Australia with a non-practicing dad, while surrounded by non-religious friends at school, was an eye-opener. Having religion shoved down your throat at home was definitely suffocating, especially when one side of you wants to believe in the Quran, but my more western side of me just wanted to live without restrictions. I met my now husband when I was 20, and it got serious pretty fast. My mum and family loved him. Only problem is he was brought up as a Christian in a very religious Christian household. My husband is a non-practicing Christian. He firmly believes in the Bible and everything it stands for. My mum asked many times if he was going to convert to Islam if we were to be married. The answer was always no. He didn't want to, and I didn't want him to do it, just for the sake of it. My mum however wanted him to just in name, as it would bring shame upon the family if he didn't. So my now husband proposes. It's supposed to be a happy time, but as you can imagine it was a complete crap show. Telling my mum I was getting married, and he wasn't converting, was one of the hardest things I have ever had to do. We got into a huge argument. My mum telling me that she will no longer love me if I go through with this. That she chooses religion and Allah over me. That she will be there crying at my wedding. I was told she would rather I marry a Muslim man, even if he was abusive towards me, rather than my loving, caring Christian partner. I was immediately disowned. At the time I was still living at home, as you didn't move out until you were married. I was kicked out on the spot, given a few minutes to pack my bags and leave. My dad sat on the sidelines and just watched it happen. I got in my car. It was about 10 PM at this stage, and I just drove to an empty car park and I just sat there crying for hours. I was so devastated and hoping I had made the right call. My relationship with my mother was over. My dad tried to patch things over, but the damage was done at this stage. My mum tried to reach out to me but I refused. My husband and I caught a plane to the Whitsundays and we eloped. Just the two of us. After all, this is what we wanted marriage to be about. Just us. It was a beautiful, stress-free day. We have now been married for over 11 years and have 3 kids. I definitely made the right decision marrying him. He is the most loving partner and a wonderful dad. I'm no longer religious, but I do think it has shaped me to be the person I'm today. It has given me the right moral foundations I believe I need to be a decent human being. Surprisingly, my relationship with mum has been repaired. She once again reached out to me before I had my first child and apologized for everything that has happened. She is now a different person and a wonderful grandmother to my children. I would be lost without her support. Though she is still religious, it is no longer forced on us or my kids. Muslim girl here married my white non-Muslim husband, doesn't identify with any religion, but not atheist. When we were 20, got married in the courthouse, and have been together for 5 years now. My family has never mentioned his race or religion at all, and we have a great relationship with them. I know I'm probably an outlier, and not a solid resource to base your perception on, but hey, sometimes things work out better than expected. Speaking as an atheist who's been dating, and now engaged to, a Muslim woman for almost 10 years now, I really think it depends on how modern her family is. We expected way more trouble, but her family has been very welcoming, and even has brought up other examples of mixed couples as well. Great grandmother is the only one who still clings to the fantasy that I'll convert, but everyone else has been surprisingly cool. For reference though, she's American, and her family has been in the States for several decades. My sister is Muslim and she's been dating an atheist for roughly 5 years secretly up until recently the truth came out. It's been tough witnessing all the lying and deceiving, but it's moving towards very slow progress, including talks of marriage. So not terrible, not great. I'm not a Muslim woman, but I'm a white, non-religious dude who is married to one. We have issues just like any other couple, but none of them have to do with religion. Her parents are obviously Muslim. Mine are pretty hardcore Christian. Everyone gets along and loves each other. Truly. TBH, I was really nervous to tell my parents I was marrying a Muslim girl, since they have always been very vocal about their Christian faith, and I have never thought of them as particularly open-minded. So much so that I actually didn't tell them she was Muslim until a week before the wedding. When I told my mom, I was expecting a horrible reaction. All she said was, seriously, you think we didn't know that? She's from a country that's almost completely Muslim. Her parents still live in Uzbekistan, so I don't get to see them very often. But they visit almost yearly. I started learning Russian to get better at communicating with them, since it is a bit easier than learning Uzbek. They sent me a birthday card this year saying that they love me and that I'm the most adorable man for them. I'm not sure I've ever grinned harder than when I read that. Anyway, yeah, we're a pretty normal married couple. One of my best friends in high school is Muslim. She got with her BF, Kiwi guy, at 17, 18, and have a 3-year at the moment. We are 29, 30. As far as I know, her family love him, and they've been together over 10 years now, not married, or in a rush to. Her family were very welcoming to anyone, and I was always over at their house as a teenager. Her sister was a teenage mum, and has 2 kids now, and a single mother, and no issues from anyone. I want to see these answers and compare to a Muslim man married to non-Muslim women. Tag this as serious. As a non-religious man, dating a Muslim girl, 4 years in a few days, this thread makes me very depressed. Her family is not very strict in the stereotypical way, but they definitely wouldn't accept me. I'm not willing to break her relationship with her parents, since she loves them very much. At the same time, she basically saved my life and I just don't picture myself being able to move on from her. She feels the same, but we don't know what to do. We said we would decide after she finishes medical school. Hopefully we find a way. Pretty hell question, but you need to know that this needs some massive upvotes to get legit response. I'm a non-Muslim man with a Muslim woman. It's not going to work out because I refuse to even go through the motions of her faith, and she refuses to allow me to do my own thing. Apparently, since I'm not religious, I'm supposed to be okay with converting to hers. And let's be clear here, it's not even all about the religion for her, it's culture. What I see still as religion, she's passing off as culture. Our dating was secret for a while, even her friends, etc. Her family didn't like me seeing her so much, but they warmed up to me as a friend because I helped her through a lot of things. When her family found out about us, they disowned her for a bit. Even after tension died down, her mom was still trying to hook her up with Muslim men through their traditional methods. This went on for several years before the truth came out that she wanted me to go all in with her culture. Now we are in this weird limbo, even though we know our future won't allow us to be together because of our strongly held beliefs. I'm really interested in hearing responses for this. I'm a Muslim woman dating a non-Muslim man for the last couple years and we are quite serious. He's not very religious. He says he is Christian, but doesn't do anything a Christian does, yet believes in God. I'm in a similar boat. I was born and raised a Muslim, but I'm no longer very religious, yet I do believe in God, so I guess that makes us both agnostic. My parents haven't disowned me yet but expect him to convert to Islam soon. They know we are dating. My mom and aunts keeps passively aggressively threatening me about the future, saying stuff like, if he doesn't convert to Islam I won't bless/allow the marriage, which is ironic because my own dad converted from Christianity to Islam to marry my mom, and his mom, my mom's mill, did not talk to him for 13 years. My mom witnessed the suffering and pain my dad went through for those 13 years, yet she's ready to do the same thing for her daughter. Nonetheless, I plan to keep my family at an arm's length. And when push comes to shove, I have already accepted a future of never meeting my parents again and being disowned. This is one of the reasons why I nearly stopped practicing my faith. What kind of religion tolerates so much hatefulness and toxic behavior towards your own family? It's just sad that I'll lose my parents and family members in the future. My best high school best friend's parents were in such a marriage. His mom was really the only religious one in the family. She was Indonesian Muslim and his dad was a non-Muslim American. He ended up converting for her sake, so her family would still talking to her after the marriage. Classic not me but my friend. Her mother is a quite serious Muslim who fled Iran to Australia. The revolution got pretty nuts and she noped out. Her father is an Australian guy who is distinctively not Muslim. They divorced after 2 kids and a few years and my friend is an atheist with quite a solid goth streak. She has a really big interest in Iranian/Persian culture, but thinks her mother is a bit of a nut. I also have a few Muslim dad, non-Muslim mums people. Most of them are non-religious too. This is Australia. Most people go non-religious. A coworker of mine who observes Ramadan and doesn't drink, I had to check, because almost all people from Muslim countries I know drink like fish. Well damn if this isn't a topic I could go on and on about, but I'm just now going to bed with a cold. I'm a 21-year-old Muslim girl who has been dating my non-Muslim boyfriend for about 1.5 years and at least discussed long-term plans such as marriage. It's tricky. He has kept a secret from my parents and their Pakistani/Muslim community where I live, and we are trying to figure out how things might go as our lives unfold. There is no one answer or consensus to give on this topic, because Muslims and their Islam are just as much about the culture as the religion, if not more. Each family will be different, based on individual style and personality, level of religiosity, nation of origin, where they live now, and levels of integration, etc. It's unfortunate that the expected response to a Muslim woman/non-Muslim man relationship is negative, but there are definitely signs of change, opening up, acceptance possible, which is why I at least hope that, if/when it comes to it, my parents will cut me off for only a while before coming around. Such is life. My best friend growing up is half Iranian. Her father immigrated from Iran 35-ish years ago. He is a practicing Muslim, and was when he met and married her mom, a practicing Methodist living in the deep south. His family was actually very progressive, and they all left Iran and moved to different parts of Europe and America during the revolution. Now, his family loved her, but her family took some warming up, and he faced a lot of prejudice. They continue to practice their religion separately. In fact, he faced so much prejudice, he was scared his daughter would have to go through it. So my friend was raised Methodist, and her father never taught her Farsi, which I think he now regrets, and I know my friend does. Not sure if this counts, but I'm a Muslim raised woman who going to marry a non-Muslim woman. Half my family don't talk to me anymore. Mom is Muslim, dad is Hindu, married for 30 years. Parents immigrated from the Caribbean to New York City after getting married. Some of her family was against the marriage, but accepted it once they saw the kind of man my father was. Mother goes to Hindu weddings and services at the local temple. We also donate food and help out when needed. She practices her own religion, praying 5 times a day, going to masjid, fasting. No pork, only halal food is cooked in the household. I'm a Muslim woman but not married. All the relationships I had started with, we can't get married so let's not go there, but then we go there and we end up breaking up. I stopped dating cause it was pretty stupid to do that to anyone in the first place. Now it seems like at least my mom would accept me marrying someone who is Jewish or a person of faith that believes in one good that is not personified or depicted in any way. And dad has branched out and said it's okay for me to marry a guy from any Arab country. So that's progress for him. Not so sure how or if it'll happen for me, but I quit looking. I'm good. Hi. I've been on Reddit for a long time, but I just created my account to reply to this. I have a Dutch boyfriend who isn't religious. While I was raised as a Muslim, after hiding our relationship for a very long time, my parents found out I was lying about where I really was, and forbid me to ever go outside again. They'd drive me to school and work, and pick me up again afterwards. This went on for a few months. They never actually found out I was dating, just suspected. I, however, Was in love. I was only 19 years old and knew this was the man who I wanted to marry someday, religious or not. I didn't want something getting in the way of that. So I decided to do something most people probably wouldn't agree with. I ran away. I packed my stuff in the middle of the night, left a note, and went to a city they wouldn't look for me. My boyfriend lives 2 hours away from my home city. 3 years later, him and I are still together. My mother thinks I'm a whore. My father doesn't speak to me. I'm always afraid they will come look for me one day. But I can tell you one thing. I'm so happy I made the decision to be myself and pick my own boyfriend instead of someone choosing for me. It feels good to tell this story. Haha. Anyway, if anyone has any further questions, feel free to send me a PM. Not a woman, but know of a couple where this happened. Basically, she found a boyfriend which was a big no-no, and had the ultimatum that she wanted to marry the man. Whole family basically broke down, and the mom refused to talk to her daughter for a few days. Eventually, her grandpa convinced her mom to go through with it. The boyfriend converted, and the wedding happened very quietly and privately. The whole extended family kinda sweep the whole thing under the rug, and we all kind of try to ignore that it happened. Personally, I don't really care too much. It's her life. She does what she wants. She had a choice between her love life and her family, and I'd like to assume that she thought about it enough to make that decision. However, the rest of the family, especially the wife's mom, seem to be really distant now. They're the couple, good people, and that's all that really matters at the end of the day. The man is definitely not a Muslim by practice, only by name, but at the same time, so is the wife. So, I guess it all works out in the end that way. Last I saw them, they are happy together, but she seems to be a bit conflicted as to what culture she's with. Basically, it just seems as though she wasn't very religious to begin with, and that's how this happened. Most religiously mixed couples either aren't very religious to begin with, or they simply have other values than their religious identity. My cousin, the whitest, dumbest, sweetest, big-peened idiot from Texas you've ever met, with a barely high school education, married, absconded with a girl of the Tamil Muslim variety 6 years ago. They now have 3 kids with another on the way, and they live in a mobile home in the wilds of central Texas. They couldn't be happier. They both work for the local police department. I don't know how, because he's a multiple arrestee and she's not even American. But they're the most successful young couple in my extended family. Everyone else is divorced or cheating, or freaking wasted 24 hours per day. They go to an Episcopalian church. My cousin, a Hindu, married a Muslim woman. Her family initially disowned her, eventually came around and wanted back in because grandkids. And the guy's awesome. Our family was pretty upset about it initially as well, but didn't disown. Now no one gives a crap because they're older, middle age, and who cares about older people? I have a reverse version of a Muslim man and Australian woman, Catholic. She's my cousin. He broke up with her because she wasn't a virgin. They got back together and are now, after years of being together, are getting married at the end of the year. He wants her to be a stay-at-home mum and also wants a large family. He's eager to start right away. They're 24. He's attempted to convert her, and she's changed from wearing slightly revealing clothing, skin tight, cleavage, to dressing quite conservatively. She used to always wear a bracelet with a cross on it, but she doesn't anymore. He's tried to convert her a few times. We're, my family, keeping a close eye on them and their progress together. We are optimistic but cautious. As a Muslim, let me tell you that I think it all depends on whether she is a practicing Muslim or not. For those who don't follow the rules of the religion, and especially if they live in a non-Muslim or secular country, it may not be a big deal. But if they are following the religion actively, or live in a Muslim majority country, it's next to impossible. I hope you find the answers you're looking for. Optimistic Redditor. Oh yeah, a question I can answer. A Muslim woman married to a non-Muslim man here. Family moved to NAD a long time ago. I was around high school-ish at the time. Both parents are strict. Dad especially so. Lived in Saudi for a long time. Since I turned 24, Dad has tried to get me to meet someone of similar faith/background. But he and I never liked any of the candidates when met face to face. He didn't know this, but I had been dating. Most men I dated were white. Not sure if it's a preference thing, or if it was simply because we lived in an area of mostly white people. In a hoe, I got broken up with a bunch because of all the complications that came with dating a brown Muslim girl. I dated a white Catholic man for about 2.5 years. Then he wanted to propose. He knew about my dad and knew there might be trouble, but he told me not to worry about it. Mom met him when he decided to propose, and she loved him. For about 6 months, we slowly indoctrinated my dad on interfaith marriage, watching my big fat Greek wedding, casually talking about interfaith marriages, etc. Then we told dad about a non-Muslim man wanting to propose, and that he'd like to ask my dad for my hand in marriage. Dad didn't know we dated, just that we were friends. Dad wanted him to convert, but then changed his mind when we talked, and he realized there are no verses in the Quran banning Muslim women from marrying Christian or Jewish men. And it's really more of a cultural, rather than a religion ban. The verses all talk about mushrikeen, which are non-believers, which are of non-Abrahamic religions. Besides, the same verses are also aimed at men marrying non-Muslim women. Somehow that was interpreted as men being okay to marry non-Muslim women, but not the other way around. My dad didn't make any promises, but said he'd like to meet him first. So, they met. My dad was a bit standoffish at first, but quickly loved my now husband and gave his blessings. Sadly, we have to keep the fact that he didn't convert on the down low from extended family and anyone else. You never know if someone would like to restore honor. I've had family members warn me about how haram it is to marry a non-Muslim man with an open can of drink in hand. FYI, drinking is very explicitly and obviously banned. It's weird. In hindsight, I'm glad the other guys ran away. There was never any indication that my dad would be violent, just that he may not be happy to see them, and that they may have to convert. Only my husband had enough courage to face him, and the confidence and patience to know he can change his mind. I feel that my dad being the way he is helped weed out those who just didn't want me badly enough. We've been happily married for almost 2 years now. No kids. His parents are religious and want the kids baptized. My parents want the kids Muslim. We figured we'll deal with that mess when we ever cross that bridge. His parents love me. I love his parents. My parents love him. And he loves my parents. Not a Muslim woman, but man engaged to an American white woman, and I have to say there was some resistance from the family, but nowhere close to how bad I have seen it for Muslim women friends I've had. But on the flip side, it has been difficult for me because of anecdotal sentiments the mostly Americans have told my fiance, such as, Muslim men only like American women for sex and then leave them for a Muslim woman. What I find that makes interracial relationships like ours work is communication, both with ourselves and family. I like my women halal in the streets and haram in the sheets. Kinda within the scope of the question, but I know several couples where a non-Muslim man converted to Islam to marry a Muslim woman, if that counts. The only marriages I have seen where the girl remained Muslim and not the guy ended up in divorce. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them. My non-Muslim friend told me about how his relationship ended because of his Muslim girlfriend's family. They were in the age of deciding about their lives. 32 meters. 28th. They talked a lot about having a family together. They were living in Italy, and oh boy, he is a nudist. Also, there was a sexuality in the relationship too. But when they want to get things official, she said that he needs to be circumcised before marriage. I mean, no one from her family would know that if they would lie. She insisted, but for him this was a stepping down, so he refused. Bam, end of relationship. He was trying to understand what kind of culture lead her to choose religion over her lover, so told these to me, I'm an ex-Muslim. Same culture in search for answer. Sometimes there is no explaining for doing these things. It's the way you raised. Other people won't get a meaning, and most of the time it's meaningless too. A serious answer. This is a bit of oxymoron, as it's not possible for a Muslim woman to marry a non-Muslim man. The Islamic wedding ceremony is one of exclusivity. Thus they'd be married in a secular ceremony by the state, and you'd be hard pressed to find someone to share their experience. For further clarification, a practicing Muslim woman wouldn't marry a non-Muslim man, as their marriage is null and void, and any relation they had would be deemed as sinful. Your question would best direct it to former practicing Muslim women who have since married a non-Muslim man. I'm a Catholic white American guy and my wife is a Reciation Muslim. I have my religion, and she has hers. We told her family that I converted. I don't think her parents hate Christians. It's just they worry about what people will think. Her grandmother was born and raised Christian, but then converted when she married her grandfather. We had a big traditional wedding this spring in her country and everyone was really nice to me. I got a sword with my wedding costume, so I was stoked. We talk about religion now and again. She thinks that it's crazy we think Jesus is the Son of God. I say it's crazy that any imam can just make any crazy interpretation he wants, and there is no hierarchy to keep them in check. Stuff like that. But like the Pope says, Muslims have way more in common than we have differences. We are always finding stuff that both of our faith have the exact same belief on. Far less beatings, I'm sure. Born Arab Muslim dating a Jewish girl. Love her to death, and I'm going to wife her one day. BTW, I'm a girl. She's amazing and practices Judaism. I'm not religious, but my family is, and they love her and don't care. We go to major Jewish celebrations and we celebrate Muslim holidays too. It's never been an issue. I'm lucky, I guess. My close friend is Muslim and engaged to a non-religious Aussie guy. Her family expect him to convert, but he's being stubborn and refusing. So most of her family have given her an ultimatum and said either him or them, and they refuse to attend the wedding because it'll have Westerners and alcohol there. Doesn't apply to me, but a bit of a similar reaction from my family. I'm a Saudi man, 22 years old with an extremely strict family, military dad and religion teacher mom. I got a BlackBerry as a kid and I joined a group where I met a Pakistani British girl 9 years older than me that lives in Saudi Arabia too. Fast forward a few years. We had a long distance relationship for quite a while. When I told my family, they disowned me. Very strict on where she was from and assumed she was poor when she wasn't. I'm married now and my family doesn't know that. But I'm the happiest I'm in my entire life with my wife and 2 little kittens. They're freaking massive. White Christian here who dated a couple Muslim girls. Personally, I didn't like it, and it's not my preference to date a Muslim girl again. I found their religion made it difficult for me to do a lot of things. For example, I wanted to meet their parents but couldn't. I wanted to go over to her house, but I could not. Their response? I'm brown, you wouldn't understand brown parents. I also found them to not be too sexual. Like it's hard to have sex with them or do sexual stuff at all. Kinda immature with dating etc. And going out in public places around the neighborhood was hard because her aunties or parents might see her overall. I prefer not to date Muslim girls. But that's just my experience and should not be taken in account of all Muslim girls. Obligatory not a Muslim woman disclaimer. If you're living in a conservative Muslim country, you will have a hard time. I like how positive examples in this thread have been, but they are not realistic for a place like Indonesia, where I'm from, where Islam is such a big part of the culture. The reasons are more cultural than they are religious. In Indonesia, it's illegal to have an interfaith marriage, and that's a fairly recent law. 2. Indonesia has had sudden growth of conservative Muslim thought, marked by the sudden popularity of Habib Rizik and the rise of the organization he heads, popularity FPI, Islamic Defenders Front, a far-right terrorist organization that uses thug tactics to harass and harm non-Muslims and fake Muslims. I can speak from experience being an atheist from a Muslim family currently engaged to a practicing Christian. You will be ostracized by society and possibly disowned by your family. I brought up that I was dating a non-Muslim and both my parents cried and said I was killing them. It's taken 6 months, but they've started talking to me again. Though we actively avoid mentioning my I do name drop her on occasion to test the waters and see how they respond. But so far they just ignore any mention of her. Her co-workers have all assumed she's going to convert to Islam. She's a firm believer in her faith. And I'm a believer that you should practice whatever the frick you want. I'm converting to get around the interfaith legality issue, since I'm still legally a Muslim. Atheism isn't recognized in Indonesia. Also, if my family refuses to accept her, I'm not going to stir trouble with her family by refusing to convert. She's well liked where she works, but once word gets out about our marriage and my converting, She's going to have a lot of new enemies. I know I've already lost a lot of friends, even in my closest circle of mates. We are planning to move to another part of Indonesia after we get married next year, just to avoid friends and family. Also, my family back in the village, where I'm originally from, will consider this an affront to our bloodline. I'm a descendant of noble blood going back several generations, and, knowing some of my uncles and cousins, she's going to get a lot of harassment. These are people who've offered to make people disappear for me. Local cultural law pretty much justifies someone getting stabbed at some point. So I'm gonna nope the frick out of here as soon as we can secure a job for her on another island. Make sure to like and subscribe so we can watch together.